Before I start, I have to thank all the ushers on behalf of Alison. They've done an amazing job over the past few weeks. They were the ones you saw rushing around for the past sort of few days and before the wedding. So thank you to them. And before I start my speech properly, I need to ask one person here one very simple question. And their answer will determine the course of my speech, the tone, any sort of jokes, any sort of blue language that I use. And the simple is quite clearly this. Richard, are you drunk yet?
Do you know what? I know.
So in that case, I need to get you another drink. Here's one for Sylvia as well. You'll have noticed that I'm strategically placed near a fire exit. It's because I can do a quick getaway if this goes wrong. Doesn't bother me in the slightest, she said, the worst that I can say. Now, according to Alison, I've been writing this speech since we were 13. And it's true. I'm really glad that she's met insert name here. And that after today, they can look forward to the birth of their first child. Maybe I should have done a rewrite. Has anyone got a pen? No? Fine, I'll go on. When I started writing this speech, I asked myself how I would tell a room full of people who didn't really know me what Alison means to me in 3 minutes or under. And the answer I came up with was, I can't. Oops. I've been lucky. Alison has put up with me for over a decade now, and why or how is a mystery to me. She's smart, funny, caring and considerate. Everything I'm not. I once joked, and I'm sorry Al, I had to get it in, that if I was ever to give a speech on her wedding night, I would open with, when I first met Alison, she was a virgin. God, I've got a good memory! But then, she reminded me that she could get her own back on my civil partnership night, and open with the line, when I first met David, he was straight. God, I've got a good memory. Too rude? Damn. All right. When I mentioned how nervous I was going to be giving this speech, I was met with reactions of, you're an actor, this should be easy. But unfortunately for me, life is real, and it's not a silly stage play or a manic musical. And there's no script for real life. One of my favourite memories of Alison, and it shows her fun-loving side and her fun-loving nature, was when we were on a choir trip to Strasbourg. We did several concerts across France and Germany, had a whale of a time, and on the last night we had a bit of a party, and me and Alison decided to dance around a pool table. I think Sylvia had just taken us to see The King and I. So we danced to Shall We Dance? 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, there was a pool table in the centre of the room, which Alison got hoiked up on, and continued to roll around on this pool table until all the choir managed to get over to her and try and tickle her. Alison's quite ticklish, as I'm now going to demonstrate. That one gone? Okay. I'd like to tell you a whole host of embarrassing stories about Alison, but unfortunately I can't. The only thing I can tell you that is, when we were 15, we made a promise to each other that if we hadn't got married by the age of 30, we'd marry each other. I'm very, very sad that I'm not marrying her. In fact, when she told me she was getting married, I cried. I cried, and I cried, and I cried. Granted, the cry was, I'm free! But I cried nevertheless, because after all, there are only two types of men. Unmarried men like me, who are incomplete, and married men like Mark, who are finished. Insulting the bride and groom, perhaps not. On Wednesday, when Alison and Laura were having their nails done, I threatened Alison with the C word. I told her that I was going to use the C word in my speech. It was the one word that I could never say in front of a group of people, or in public, or in front of a family, or indeed in front of my own mum and dad. Well, here goes. The one word that will shock everyone that I'm going to say, commitment. Alison has always been, even with my bad influence, the most committed and most sensible of friends. Granted, at points during this week, she might have wanted to be committed, hence her reception near Whitchurch Hospital. And I'm sure her parents have thought the same thing about me during this speech. But she has always been my most committed and loyal friend. Yes, we've had hard times and the odd falling out, but her friendship has been one of the few things that I could have counted on in my life. Without her amazing influence and positive attitude, I wouldn't be the person that I am today, or possibly I wouldn't even be here. And for that, I also have to thank Richard and Sylvia, for they've been like family to me. Alison is the kind of person that would always be there for you. In the worst of times, she'd be a shoulder or breast to cry on, as her twins are very comfy. And at the best of times, she'd be the person to make you laugh and smile. I can sum Alison up in one sentence and one sentence only. Never take your life too seriously. And this comes from the image, as we've already heard, that on her rehearsal night, she laughed and almost cried to Knowing Me, Knowing You, a mix-up, you heard me earlier, between an ABBA song and the hymn we sung earlier. Alison, I'm happy to have known you, and I'm happy that you have found someone as wonderful as Mark, and that I have had the opportunity to get to know him. He is silly, stupid, with a clown-like grin. He's a wonderful and perfect partner for Alison. Mark has always made me feel welcome and has been a wonderful addition to our group of friends that we used to call the Scooby Gang. See, there's a few laughs there. And while I have a few stories about Alison and Mark to tell, this isn't the place for them. I do have one very quick final story to tell, and this is about Mark. That when Alison and Mark got engaged, Mark turned to me and said, "Don't worry, Dave. I know there'll always be 3 people in this relationship. Me, you, and Ally." To me, that demonstrates how wonderfully matched Mark and Alison are. Not only can Mark accept Alison for the wonderful person that she is, but he can also accept her strange best friend and all her wonderfully eccentric friends too. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glass to toast with me my best friend, the beautiful bride, and her new husband, the gracious groom. The bride and groom.
Bride and groom.